Hey, what is up? Ruben Cueto here for Creativity Bridge. I hope all is well in your part of the world. Our previous lesson focused on improving our perception skills by using the drawing strategies of axis lines and negative space. And hopefully you're finding improvement in your drawings, but if you feel your drawings aren't quite where you want them to be yet, please don't stress out. Being relaxed and focused is key in developing our perception skills. And also remember the name of our current unit of study. It's Perception and Drawing. For the beginning artist, perception must be developed before we develop our drawing skills. And while it's true we are drawing, these exercises are designed to be perception exercises, not works of magnificent art. Also remember, as developing artists, we are in this for the long game, meaning we understand we will be making mistakes, but we must get our bad drawings out of our system for us to reach the skill levels we desire. Everyone you know who draws well has already made more mistakes than you have. But we've now made the decision to strive for something higher, and that's a cool thing. So we're going to expand our skills here by examining a visual strategy most artists develop naturally, but anyone can learn. So all right, let's go ahead and get that party started right. To purchase a drawing task for this lesson, go to creativitybridge.com and click on the upper menu. There you can click on our first unit, Perception and Drawing, and go down to our current assignment, Alignment Guides. Click on the Purchase Lesson PDF button, and there you can click on I Want This. The skill we'll be focusing on in this lesson is vertical and horizontal alignment. Now, vertical and horizontal alignment is something artists naturally look for when they're drawing. This is the process of comparing the location of one object relative to the position of others. And so what I mean by that is, let's say we have an object that's right here, and we have another object down here. What we do is we use the position of one object to figure out where the other one's going to be using horizontal and vertical alignment, okay? By doing this, the artist will constantly check the development of their drawing to ensure its accuracy. People with drawing experience constantly do this, so much so that it becomes second nature and they don't even notice that they're doing it. But this is a habit everyone can develop. So we'll do this by having printed guides superimposed over our drawings to help us develop our location skills. We'll then slowly remove the guides to the point where we don't need them anymore. The first guide system we'll use is superimposed grids on top of our images. The vertical and horizontal lines in the grid act like visual training wheels, developing our alignment skills, and they'll force us to be mindful of all the alignments occurring in the drawing along an X and Y axis. The key to grid drawing is to eventually remove these grids. We will increase the size of the grid cells to the point where we eventually don't need them anymore, and the perimeter of the image itself is just one big grid cell. So let's examine our first drawing task. Remember, this task, along with all the tasks shown in this video, are included in the lesson PDF and is available at the Creativity Bridge website. So here's the first of the 5 drawing tasks available on our website, creativitybridge.com, that correspond with this lesson. It's the first image of an elephant on a grid. And so what we have here is we have the pre-printed grid on top of the image. And what I've done already is I've numbered these lines 1 through 15 going across the top and the bottom, and 1 through 13 horizontally on both sides here. And that's going to really help me out with the image here. Let me just go ahead and do that real quick. I'll just do a few of these lines here to get me started, making sure that I don't skip any, because that would be oh so embarrassing. All right, so let's just go ahead and do that for right now. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and start with this area right here and work my way eastward across the drawing. So I want to find where the drawing intersects with the grid, and that's going to be really important when we're dealing with grid drawings. We want to find where the drawing is touching the grid, and that helps us connect everything. It's basically going to become a very large connect the dots kind of assignment here. So looking at this point right here where this side of the tail is touching horizontal 9, I notice that it's almost at the halfway point between here and vertical 1. So I'm going to find that on my drawing a little bit to the left. So I'm going to guess that the drawing of the tail touches here, and for 8 it's not quite above it, it's slightly to the right. So now I'm going to draw this line here. It curves inward and it goes like that. Okay, so that's going to be our approach to the drawing. cell by cell, step by step, connecting the dots and getting everything down. Now, it's going to take us a while to get this done, but I think if we take this approach, we should be okay. Now, let's go ahead and continue here. See how this line is starting to curve to the right here, and that this point is slightly to the right of the midpoint. So I'm going to find that around here, and that should work out okay as the tail starts to slightly turn to the right. Here at this point, the line is right below this intersection of 1 and 6, about here. Again, connecting the dots. Here at this point, this line is to the right of 1. So that's making sense so far. And so that's what we want to do. We just want to go step by step on this very complex drawing, simplifying it for us, and figuring out where everything should go. I see here on this line, it's not one smooth line. It has that little bit of a bump right there. You see that? So I'm going to guess that that line direction change is going to happen here and then continue this way. Above horizontal 4, this direction continues, but at this point, it starts to slightly change direction of line. There and there. And then all the way up to horizontal 2, which is around here. So I think so far we're okay, and this part looks like it's correct. Now let's go ahead and work our way down. The tail actually drops below horizontal line 9, reaching almost to 10. So it curves this way toward the right, like this. And then there's those lines here. Though, you know what? I really shouldn't worry about the lines in the interior. I want to do the perimeter of the drawing first. I want to make sure that everything is contained exactly where it should be, and then I can worry about the details. You don't want to start drawing the details only to find out that you've misplaced something. So now that I have that, I notice that the outside part of this tail swings to the slightly to the right of 1 and swings back this way to here. And then we need to remember the previous lesson about negative space. If you can see, it's really, really small, but if you have the printed image in front of you, you'll see this tiny little negative space right there. That to me looks like the state of Nevada. See that shape? A holler to the silver state. And then at this point, we want to make sure that this line, actually this should be a little bit more to the left. There we go. And at this point, it comes up, goes like this. See right here, it's slightly to the left. So I think we're okay here. Now, one of the things that I should mention too when you're drawing is the importance of the tip of your pencil. Now I'm using a mechanical pencil, as you can see. If you're using a wooden pencil, that's perfectly fine. But please try your best to keep that pencil point sharp. And the reason we want to keep the pencil point sharp is because if the pencil lead starts to get a little bit like dull, and worn, that line is going to become wider and wider, okay? And for drawings with a lot of detail and a lot of precision, you want to make sure that your line is clean and sharp. So if you're drawing a lot and you're not sharpening your pencil, you really need to be mindful of that, because you'll find that the width of the line, especially for stuff like this, will make an impact on its appearance. All right, so now see this negative space right here, that little kind of hook shape right here? I'm going to guess that it goes like this. And so far, I think we're okay. So I've got the beginning of this sequence, of this line that drops down this way all the way down to here to 4. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to number these bottom lines like I should have before. And I notice that this bottom part is going to be down here. This part is going to be close to the intersection here, and it consists of a line that comes forward, goes like this, and swings back this way. So now I know that this line starts here, ends here, and I can work my way up, I can work my way down. I'm going to work my way up, and hopefully everything will be okay. Taking the same process. Let's look at where horizontal 12 is right there. Slightly to the right between 3 and 4, around here. And then, like I've mentioned before in previous lessons, we're doing a lot of guessing, but my guess is that you guys are improving your guessing skills, all right? When you're starting to draw, our lines are a little bit tentative. I'm not sure where they're supposed to go, but the more you do this, you're going to find that your line are going to become more confident, because you're developing the skill like an archer, right? like a basketball player. All right, so that line works okay. So that looks pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and continue where I left off and work my way toward the top and try to develop this. Again, I want to make sure that I know where the drawing is touching the grid, the pre-printed grid, because that's really going to help me figure out where things go and make sure that I don't mess up. Like for example, right here, horizontal 1, this piece is slightly above it, right? So I want to make sure that I am in the right zone here. Now notice how I'm holding the pencil, okay? Now this is something that was mentioned by a viewer in a previous lesson that I made, that it was commented that sometimes I hold the pencil like this or something like that. Please don't feel the need to mimic how I hold the pencil. The reason I'm holding it in different ways is I want the pencil lead to be visible so you can see the line that I'm generating. So sometimes it forces me to hold my pencil in an awkward way like this, or like right now I'm holding it like this. Hold the pencil in a way that's comfortable for you, okay? Please. Okay, now this line is starting to drop down, and it's slightly below this intersection at 1 and 7. Continues this way. Maybe mine should be a little bit higher. Then it comes up like this, 9, 9. Now I should really number these lines. I've had so many students start off really good drawings only to mess up because they forgot a number. So let's make sure that we don't do that, right? All right, good. So all right, so let's go ahead and start this here. Now here I've got this large shape as the elephant's ear makes an appearance. So what I want to do is I want to make sure I got this point right. I could continue this way or I could work my way down. Because like I mentioned in the first lesson, the first drawing lesson video that I made, one of the issues that students have when they're learning to draw is where do I start, which way do I go, and where do I stop? And so some people will ask me, well, why would you go this way? Why not this way? What are the factors that are crossing your mind to make you make those decisions? Well, some of it is going to be just, I feel like drawing the head, I feel like drawing the ear, just, don't discount the aspect of emotion and what's going to get you motivated. Like, I want to draw this, I want to draw that. But sometimes there are practical reasons, all right? So what I think I want to do is I want to make sure that I've got this large shape established first, and then once I have that, I'll make sure that the ear is correct. Though I could have made the argument I could just continue working from left to right and do the ear first and go this way. But instead, I think what I want to do is I want to corral the outside edge of this image first because I'm using the grid system, and then I can go ahead and do all the details inside. Because I've seen many drawings um, end up with some mistakes because the grid system was numbered incorrectly, or people weren't paying attention to where their lines were and they were one row off, and it throws things off. See, let's look right here at this front part. See how at horizontal 3 this line is almost right in the middle, maybe slightly to the left, slightly. So that's another thing that we're doing, right? We're developing our observation skills, which is super important. And also what we're doing is we're using skills that we've developed in previous lessons. If you've been watching the previous lessons, remember those line progressions that we did in the very first lesson? This is all a line progression, right? Up, down, drawing like a roller coaster kind of thing. I know that those line progressions weren't the most fun, the most exciting, the most sexy assignment ever done, but the skills that they yield, they're worth it. Okay? And then this is at 6. And so you get the idea of using the grid and where the drawing is touching the grid. Actually, this should come out a little bit farther, huh? There we go. Okay. Good. Now I'm at a point here at horizontal 8 where this is going to be going to the left of vertical 15. And then I've got the tip here of the elephant's tusk. So I want to be mindful now of the negative space. See this white space that's created between the drawing and the grid itself? So I'm not only making sure that this is correct, I need to make sure that this is correct because they're interacting with each other, the negative space and the positive space, the object that we're drawing and the negative space around it or within it sometimes. Okay. And then this is here. So I'm going to continue with the tusk, or the trunk, I should say. So that looks about right. Okay. I can continue down. So now I'm at 9, 10. I want to make sure that everything's in the right spot. 14 here. So now I'm looking for where this spot's going to be. It's almost in the middle between 13 and 14 on horizontal 10. Yep, that looks about right. Now, it's tempting just to draw a straight line, right? But this line has its own characteristics. There's these little bumps and slight line directions and stuff. You want to try to mimic those as best you can. Now, you'll get better at it, no doubt. But don't fall into the temptation of, oh, I'm just going to draw a straight line. Because they're not. One of the things, the main thing of this whole unit, like I mentioned at the beginning of this lesson, is to develop our perception skills. The more that we do this, the better our perception skills are going to get, and we can see slight differences that are occurring with our lines. Okay. So I'm going up now. I'm feeling more confident because now that I know where this is, it's almost working like a guide for me. It's helping me travel back up north on this drawing. This goes here. No, this is a little bit off. And some people have asked me, why do you use a mechanical pencil? Well, one of the reasons just because since I'm drawing, on camera, I don't want to have to stop to sharpen the pencil. I don't want to have to edit that. So it's convenient. But for drawing lines, for drawing simple lines like this that are uniform, meaning they're not thick or thin, they're just a uniform line, this is a perfect tool. But eventually, we will be wanting to shift from a mechanical pencil to a different material, different type of pencil, your classic wooden pencil. And we'll get to that later. But for right now, wooden pencil, mechanical pencil, whatever you have. This is a little bit too high. Okay, so it looks like I'm in the right spot. Let's check it out. Horizontal 12. I'm sorry, horizontal 6, vertical 12. Looks like we're okay. Okay, we can see that silhouette of the elephant taking shape. I could continue this way, but I really want to tackle that ear. That ear is like it's haunting me. So let's go back up where I was. And notice how I'm holding the pencil. This isn't a comfortable position for me, but I'm doing it so the drawing can be seen as I generate it on camera. One of the things that I've noticed as an art teacher, and I didn't realize this until fairly recently, is how students are not being taught how to hold a pencil anymore. There isn't a uniform accepted way of holding a pencil. It's not being emphasized. And the reason I noticed this is I had some students with some really odd, to say the least, methods of holding a pencil lead. There were all sorts of different grips, and there have been a ton of grips where I've seen where the student can't see where the lead is when they're drawing. And I remember once I was walking around in the classroom looking at people's drawings. I was trying to figure out what's going on, what's going on. Then I realized it and I said, oh, I get it. And they were like, what? What's going on? That's because I realized that some students, because of the way they're holding their pencil, they don't see where the tip is. And because they don't see where the tip is, they're not sure of where the drawing is or where the drawing's coming from, really. It's just there's this hand and the line is just coming. I don't know how you can draw without seeing where the pencil lead is. But anyway, that's enough of my rants. Drops down this way. So it looks like we're in good shape. So my suggestion, if you were to do this drawing, is do the perimeter of the elephant, making sure everything's in the right spot. Do the major landmarks like the ear and the tusks and the legs and all that stuff. Really tempting to place the eye. That's a major detail. I'll go ahead and place that eye real quick. The eye exists between 14 and 15 and between 4 and 5, so it's going to be somewhere around here. So this is going to be a little bit trickier now because I've got all these lines here, and that eye, if I just look at that eye, it's kind of like just floating in the middle, okay? Or kind of like above the middle, I should say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for this larger shape right here, establish that, and then I'll put the eye in the negative space. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Between 14 and 15 and 4, so around here, this eye is about, or this shape near the eye is over here. It has all these lines that feather this way. So when you do this drawing, you want to do as much of the specific details as possible. I'm kind of scribbling it in, but the more specific your lines can be, it's really going to help you. Now that I have that, this negative space is obviously where this eye is going to exist. Just curves this way. And that's going to force me not to make it too big. And then there's these, the bags under the elephant's eye, not enough sleep, was probably on its cell phone all night long, like my students. But we won't get into that. Finish that. And then some lines above. So we're okay here, right? And so what you want to do is go square by square. I'll do just a few here. Line here, here. And I know this is going to be, you know, a lot of work, but you'll be so satisfied with yourself and with the progression that you're making if you make the effort. Lines up here. So you're going to want to go cell by cell, making sure that everything's where it should be, and you're going to find that things are going to work out. So here's drawing task number 2 of the 5 drawing tasks available in this lesson on our Creativity Bridge website. And here we have this man with clasped hands like this. And so you can notice the difference between this one and the previous grid drawing. Specifically, the grid cells are starting to get bigger and bigger. We want to approach this like training wheels. We will eventually want to get rid of them, and where the perimeter of the drawing is the cell itself, okay? But we're not quite there yet. So what we have here is a much simpler drawing, but the grid cells are bigger. So it's going to force us to work a little bit more to make sure that everything's in the right spot. So looking at this image, it's kind of confusing as to what would be the best thing to draw. So what I would suggest, what I tell my students, is to draw the largest object first. And in this case, it would be his face. So what I want to do first is, and I'm going to use my highlighter to show you, is I want to establish this line right here. This line that represents the side of his face, I think is going to be a good start. This part right here, you know, these lines basically contain his face. I want to put that in first and make sure everything fits in, similar to what we did with the elephant. A lot less lines to number. You can number them if you want. 1 through 5 this way, 1 through 7 down this way on both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this line here. So I'm going to start at this point. I see that this line basically starts right at 4. And again, we want to basically connect the dots. We want to find out where the drawing is touching the grid. And we're going to place that line where it should go. Now notice in this drawing that the lines have thickness in them, okay? The lines aren't like the elephant drawing. There's thin lines and thick lines, and they change in width. So for the purposes of what I'm going to show you right now, let's just use our mechanical pencil or whatever pencil you're using, and let's keep the lines uniform. Later on, if you want to thicken the lines and make them thin like you see here, that's fine. But let's focus right now on making sure that the drawing is accurate, okay? So I look at this point here. I see this line. It's not a pure vertical, it starts to flare out this way a little bit. And it's at its widest point below the halfway point. So I'm going to guess around here. And then there's a direction change as it swings back this way. Okay, and again, I'm not drawing the whole width of this line, so I'm basically drawing something kind of in the middle. This line basically comes really close, flares out this way, and comes really close to that intersection. Maybe that should be a little bit lower in the flaring. There we go. There's a slight negative space here. This line, does it touch between 3 and 4 right in the middle? No, maybe to the right, huh? Maybe right around here. And then this line drops like that. There's a slight bump right there. See that? Maybe I should fix mine a little bit. There we go. And this line stops almost dead center in this cell, maybe a little bit above it, right? Right around here. So I've got this line. Great. Okay. Now let's go ahead and work on this line. Right here, we're about almost halfway. About here, slightly to the left. I want to find where, again, the drawing is touching the intersection of where the drawing touches the grid. We're making guesses, but our guesses are getting better and better as we become more and more talented. There's a slight line direction here, and this again is near the intersection. I can make these lines thicker later. Here this line drops down, has a sharp hook up, and then drops almost vertically and then swings this way. There's a lot of stuff happening in this line. Now again, I'm going to be holding my pencil in weird positions just for the sake of the shooting of the film. But you hold your pencil in whatever position works for you. All right, good. So I've contained the face. Great. Now let's go ahead and start doing some of the larger lines here that are happening. This one's easy. This little piece of hair kind of flares out. I don't want to go too far. See how this line isn't quite at the halfway point between 4 and 5? If this is halfway, it's definitely to the left. So something like that works. Good. Now what I want to do is establish this line. I'll use my highlighter so we can see it better. I want to get this line going all the way up like this. That's a fun line. Let's go ahead and do that. So that means this line curves up slightly above horizontal 2, drops down. There's this little point right here to about here. It's close to the intersection, but not that close. There is a definite line direction as it comes up, swings back slightly. And then we got these cool like jagged things here, these little points. I want to make sure I place those right. And I want to make sure I end up in the right spot. So it's going to go something like this. And then this goes something like that. This line has a drop as it goes almost to the halfway point. Do not hold your pencil like this. I'm just doing it so you can see. And it swings up like that. Got his hair. Great. Now let's do those eyes, those piercing, penetrating eyes this dude has. So, all right, so let's figure it out. When I look at his eyes, to me, they have, especially this one, has a shape like a football. See that football shape that he has right there? So I want to figure out where that eye begins and where that eye ends. And I can go right to left, left to right. I notice, though, that this corner is right at vertical 4. So that's a big clue. So that means that this eye is probably around here. It's definitely not low. It can't be too close to the intersection. So I'm guessing it's around here. Now, there are a variety of things that I can do here. I'm going to do an axis line, right? I can use strategies from other lessons and apply it here. Imagine if I were to draw a straight line that goes corner to corner. That's going to give me the angle of what the eye is doing. And it stops at about here, I would guess. Now that I have that, that's going to act like a frame to help me figure out what the eye should be doing. This line rises up. It's at its widest point here, so that's its widest point about here. Then it drops down, making that football shape. The same thing's happening here and here. And then we look at the negative space of the white of his eye. This side is bigger and this side is smaller. So that works out just fine. Now that I have that, that's really going to help me figure out where everything else goes. This line goes about here, does this thing. He's got those big eyebrows. For this, because it's so thick, I will draw the top and bottom edges of it. It goes up like this and drops down this way. It goes like this, even higher, drops down like that. Then he's got this line here that goes above horizontal 2 and drops down. This line this way, line here. And then like I mentioned, if you want to thicken up these lines later, you're welcome to do so. Great. Now let's go ahead and establish this other eyeball. Not quite a football, but generally like a football. Okay. I want to figure out where this is going to be. It's not quite at halfway between 2 and 3. It's above it. And the angle is very similar. The axis line will be very similar to the other eyeball. And that works out, right? It's going like this. It's probably starting about here and ending about here. So that's going to put our eye going up this way. The widest point is here, but notice that the width of the eye is diagonal, the widest point. So I want to make sure that I compensate for that. And then the whites of the eyes are like negative space. And then I can start to put in everything else. This arc's above. No, well, that was pretty close actually, more like that. Now, the face may look a little bit different. That's because I'm not putting in the thickness of the lines yet. Once the thickness of the lines would be put in, then it's going to take up the space that it should. But as basically kind of like a wireframe for the drawing, it's working out okay. There's this line that goes kind of in the same direction. This one goes lower, hooks back. So the puzzle pieces are fitting in a way that we want them to. This line right here is near the intersection of 2 and 2. So that would be about here. It drops down to here. But remember, the grids are not going to be sticking around. We don't want them to stick around forever. I mean, there'll be times when you would want to use a grid system. There are times when I use a grid system. When I'm drawing or painting something on a large scale, I'll have the image gridded up. I'll replicate the grid on a larger scale on the target piece, the canvas or whatever I'm going to work on, to make sure that things are in proportion. So using a grid is a very useful tool if you're doing stuff like that. But remember, what we want to do is develop our perception skills. Grids are really helpful for that, but at a certain point, like the song says, let it go, let it go. And that's right there, that's right here. So everything's starting to work out. Now I can continue with the face, but what I want to talk about right now, focus on next, are the hands, because sometimes people get frustrated with hands. There are some people who got frustrated with the hands from the drawing task from previous lesson. So let's go ahead and break this down into something simple. Let's view these hands as one big unit, okay? And then we're going to break it down into smaller units. So you look at this like, oh my gosh, what a mess, all these lines. Let's look at the outside perimeter of this. When I look at this thing, at these hands as a unit, it kind of has a silhouette kind of like a house. The sides and the roof, see that, if you can visualize that, okay? So what I want to do then for my drawing is I want to figure out where these line changes happen and connect the dots. So like this point right here where the wrist is, it's above 7 slightly between 2 and 3. So that's going to be, my guess is around here. This point is above 5, almost directly vertical, right? This point is between 3 and 4 around here, and that would make sense. This point is between 4 and 5 below horizontal 5. My guess around here. And then this point here is below 7, between 4 and 5, maybe around here, vertical drop. These 5 points are really going to help me figure out what the hand is doing. So now it's basically, again, connecting the dots. A lot of what we do in drawing is about simplification, about taking things that are complex and figuring out a way of simplifying it so we can understand it, so the viewer can understand it. And so what we're doing here is we're taking this complex image, looking at it as one large shape and simplifying it. Okay, great, cool. Now we got all these lines still, but again, we can simplify this. So watch. Watch and learn. See where these lines are here? Where his fingers are, where the knuckles are. See that? What I want to do is I want to find those in my drawing and replicate it. So for example, this point right here, I'm going to guess it's above 6. It's around here. And I want to find each of these spots. I should use, let me use a red thing so you guys can see that better. That spot, that spot, that spot, that spot right there. And I want to find those dots. Hopefully you can see that. I know it's a little bit small. But what I can do now is once I find those spots on my drawing, and then this one I'm going to guess is around here, 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 and here. All I have to do is draw these curves to connect them. This goes this way. 2, 3, 4. And now that I have that, just connect those. Okay? And now I've got that whole sequence. Now these two lines here meet at about this point near 5. This goes like this, like that. This line is short. And then there's this direction change. It goes down this way. Comes back, slight hoop. All right. See how things are taking shape here? I want to find where this spot is right here and see that. It's about here. And then it curves. Right? Working out. It's working out. And then again, we can fatten up these lines later if you want to. But it looks like it's going to work out. And then there's this whole sequence right here. Let's go ahead and use the highlighter again to see that now. See that piece right here? I want to find that. That's almost right in the middle. This is about here. Right? And then there's this, see this curve right there? Goes back this way. Curves up. Up, this comes down. All right, works. Now that would be filled in, and that would compensate and fill it in and make the drawing more accurate. This line down here goes to here and here. This line goes here and here. So you can see that there's a lot more work to do, but we can do it if we take this approach. Remember, look for where the drawing is touching the grid, and then once you do that, it's a matter of just placing the dots where they are, connect the dots, and then you're going to see that this drawing is really going to take shape, and it's going to look pretty good. All right, so let's continue with our third of the 5 drawing tasks for this lesson. And oh boy, what a drawing task you have before you here. You've got this beautiful lady with all these leaves and butterflies and all this stuff. And you can see that the grid is disappearing almost to the point of non-existence. There's only 2 vertical lines here, 1 horizontal line here, and all the stuff to deal with. Now, let's not get frustrated with this thing. Let's try our best, take a deep breath, and let's just use the skills that we have and develop some new ones in order to be successful with this, okay? So looking at this image, let's remember some of the things that we've discussed in our previous drawings, and that is drawing the largest object first. And what I want to do is I want to isolate her lovely face here. So I'm going to use my highlighter, and I'm going to highlight this line so we can see it a little bit better, okay? This is where we want to start, because by putting this in, it's going to help anchor everything else, and because the large objects are going to set the tone for what's happening everywhere else in the drawing. Okay, so when I have this, that's going to help me out, and then later on I'll move on to some of the larger images as well here. Now let's go ahead and look at where the drawing is touching the grid, which is something I've been saying over and over to help us with our grid drawings. If I look at this top point here and where this intersection is, if I were to look at where the halfway point is, I would say that this is the halfway point about here. The forehead is maybe slightly below. So looking at this corresponding grid, I'm going to guess it's somewhere around here. Now, something you may have noticed is that the drawings are not the same size as the printed image. So in some drawings, you're drawing bigger, and some you're drawing smaller. And all that change of scale, these proportion shifts that you have to make, is like working your drawing muscles. It's making you stronger. You may not realize it, but having things at different sizes forces you to develop your observation skills even more, and it's making you a better artist. Now let's go ahead and figure out where this line is touching the grid here. If this is the halfway point about here, and this is the quarter point, it's obviously in between. Halfway, quarter point. I'm going to guess that that line is about here. Okay. This line down here, if this is this line segment, if this is the halfway point at about here, and this is the quarter points halfway, but around here, that's almost in between those two. Half, quarter, somewhere around here. So these 3 spots right here are really going to help me out to establish a drawing, because there's so much empty space here. Now our line has to be even more accurate. This line progression has to be even more accurate. But what I want to do right now before I start drawing is I'm going to use a strategy that we've used in a previous lesson, and that is I'm going to rotate the image. I'm not going to do it upside down, but I will do it sideways. And the reason I want to do that is I want to simplify that line and look at it almost like a line progression, like what we did in one of our previous lessons. So what I want to do is I want to mimic the line as it goes and does all these changes as it makes its path going this way, okay? I can start wherever I think it's going to be helpful. I'm going to start at this point, and I'm going to drop my way down here. Now I'm going to be looking at this point right here. I'm going to guess that that's going to be around here. So, and then this point here, this line comes this way. Now, if it's not exactly right, yours or mine, no worries. We can always fix it if we need to, but we need to start somewhere, right? We need to have something on the paper to fix. We don't want to be having what's called like a artistic paralysis, where we're just so overwhelmed by what we're supposed to draw. I'm going to look for where the mouth is. It's about almost halfway between this intersection and the chin. So what I was saying is I don't want to be so overcome by an artistic paralysis that I don't put anything down on the paper. Even me right now, it's like, all right, let's just jump in, right? I want to figure out where things are going to go. And if I've made a bad drawing or if it's incorrect, well then, now I have something that I can fix. But if I don't attempt anything, then I have nothing to fix. So I need to make an attempt, and then I'll correct it from there. Now I'm already seeing an issue here. It may be that I made the chin a little bit too high. But I think that might be correct. Let's take a look. I'm going to switch this around. There may be some issues with this part here. But again, we need to put something down in order to make adjustments to it. Oh yeah, this needs to be fixed right there. Okay, good. This line needs to be adjusted too. There we go. That's much better. Now, I'm not putting in the thick lines here. Notice that there's some line thickness here. I'm going to keep my line just really simple with my mechanical pencil. If you want to thicken them up later, that's fine. Right now, we're focusing on accurate line placement, the line angle, the direction, the length, all that kind of stuff. Now let's go ahead and put in this shape right here. When I see this eyeball, to me, it has kind of like a pizza slice triangle shape to it. I want to find where that's going to be. I'm going to guess that this is maybe around here somewhere. Here we go. The eyelashes connect to the eyebrow, and the eyebrow swooshes back this way. Maybe not that high. Now, I'm not going to thicken it up. I'm just going to keep it as a line right now, as a curve. Let me fix that. Okay. I need to fix this a little bit. Okay, better. Now that we have this, let's go ahead and place that ear. See how the ear exists at this intersection right here? And I see that the top part is slightly above it. This part's around here. This part is about here somewhere. Now what I can do is I can use what I've drawn, and I see that the mouth kind of aligns with this point here. Yeah, that was about right. So I can go ahead and connect all that stuff. Good. All right. I can put in all that stuff later, but I know that the ear is going to be right there. Oh, and I didn't finish the neck, did I? This line just stops right here. Since I'm not putting in the leaves in yet, actually figuring out where this is kind of tricky, because that's the thing about drawing. You know, right now this line is existing in a vacuum and I have nothing to compare it to. So I have to kind of visualize this drawing without these leaves here, and I'm going to guess that this line ends at about here. This should come a little bit less forward. Right. Now, these subtleties that I'm putting in here, if yours doesn't have that, don't stress out. We're looking for development of our perception. If we can make a nice drawing out of this, great. But remember, the point of this is to develop our perception skills, not necessarily to make a great drawing. If there is a great drawing that happens, that's an excellent byproduct, but the focus is on perception, okay? Now that I have this, I want to go ahead and put in the next largest object, which to me is this curve thing that's happening that starts at the bottom, gets really close to the nose, and stops right here. So this starts right here, so that's a big help. This gets really close to the nose, I'm going to guess around here, and this stops around this point, I'm going to guess. So this line that goes like this. There's a little bit more of a gap between this and the chin. And then it swings back around this way. So something like that. And the line mirrors it on the other side here to give it its thickness. All right, good. So that's a good start. Now let's go ahead and start to put in some of the leaves that we see in this drawing. Let me go ahead and put that a little bit better on the screen. Instead of drawing the outside edges of these leaves, what I would suggest is let's use a strategy that we're familiar with. That is axis lines, doing the inside part of the leaf first and then developing the outside. And that really should help us with all these leaves that we got in front of us, okay? So I'm going to look for the largest leaves first. I'm going to look for this spot right here, this spot, and I want to place these spots that I'm identifying accurately on my drawing. So I'm going to guess that this, if this is where the forehead is, this might be around here somewhere. I am making guesses, but my guesses are becoming better and better. Now I'm going to look for this area right here. See that rectangle that I just made? So it's smaller, so around here. This one is around here. Almost aligned with this other one. Yeah, that was right. Okay, so let's do these three to start off. I'm going to go ahead and draw this line as it drops down this way. And it should stop, yeah, right about there. If I go this way, horizontally, it's above the eyebrow. This one goes over the line here and it goes into this cell. This line comes over like this. This line is like this. And then this one here drops down to this. So this might be a little bit too long, just a little bit. This line comes over toward the forehead, goes up, goes this way. So I'm doing the inside, and if by doing the inside and making these lines accurate, also let's keep in mind negative space. So for example, see this V shape right here? I want to make sure that that white space in between stays accurate. This line stops down here. See that? I'm going to guess around here. This line is very short. This line is a little bit longer. And it drops below this one. See that? Now let's go ahead and close them and see what we got. This goes like here, here. So by doing this axis line approach and working from the inside out, which is going to be something that we'll be doing in later lessons, it's really going to help us establish an accurate drawing. And it's really helping us with our perception skills. See how this is close right here? And see how that's working out? Now, if your drawing isn't coming out exactly like this, no worries, no stress. We've got lots of mistakes to make, but we'll make them, together and we'll learn. So like right here, for example, see this line should have been a little bit more forward. I'm keeping in mind the negative space, the white space here, making sure that the white space is accurate. Right. Good. So I got those leaves there in the right spot. I can thicken them up later if I want to. The hair looks like it's going to work out here. Or maybe there's actually a little bit of an issue with this one because this line should go like this. So that means this line should stop here. This one's a little bit too long. Yeah, right here. Right, got it. Okay, so we can continue that with this leaf right here. I want to find where that spot's going to be. It is to the right of where this leaf ends. I'm going to guess it's about here. And then I'm drawing the axis lines of it. It drops down almost to where the ear is. This one gets close to the tip of the ear. My drawing's bouncing here all over the place. Oh, just press down the tape. That helped. This way, like that. Almost like a starfish, right? This point right here is above, drops down below, comes this way, this way, this way. Because we are changing the scale of the drawings here on these lessons, it is making you work a lot more. If you were to draw this at the same size, it would be easier, but honestly, you wouldn't be getting as much out of it. It's the scale change of drawing something smaller that's making this drawing much more challenging, but ultimately much more rewarding. Drawing something easy, that's no big deal. And, we may have some pride with it, but doing something challenging, that's the trick. and coming up with something that's coming up successful, that's even better. And like I said, our best drawings are yet to come. Now let's go ahead and look at this top part here. See this curve that comes up this way? I want to find where that spot is and that spot is on my drawing. So this line ends near this intersection right here. This line is, if this is the top and this is the corner, is that about the halfway? Well, let's get that on camera, right? Let's get that on camera. There we go. Is this halfway? Almost, maybe slightly below here. Okay, we can check it. This point, yeah, that's right. See where this point is? It's slightly lower than that. Slightly, yeah, works out. Okay, so now I have this. I'm going to go ahead and put that curve in. And then there's these lines that mirror that curve. And then there's all that stuff in there. We can put that in later. But that's going to work like a container. Now I can go ahead and put this leaf right here and do all that, and it should fit just fine. Oh, actually, this is a little bit too low. See, I've got an issue here now. Oh, I see. Okay. All right, no worries. Don't anyone panic. There we go. There we go. Good. And then we got these little flowers here, these daisy-like flowers here. That's going to be actually kind of simple to do. There's a circle, and even these have their own axis line. So let's go ahead and start with that. I'm going to place this circle right here. And then I'm going to do the axis lines. There's one that goes this way, one that goes this way, one that goes this way. Yep, that's going to fit. This way, this way. And then once I have that, then I can just go ahead and do the petals, keeping in mind the negative space. See that little white space right there, that negative space I just shaded in? Right. So if something is off, go ahead and fix it. But that's how we approach it, step by step, okay? Now let's go ahead and deal with some of the issues that are happening on the right side of this drawing here. I'm going to go ahead and reposition my stuff here so it can be seen better on screen, if you'll indulge me. Okay, now we've got all these cool objects happening on the right side, specifically these butterflies here. What I'm going to suggest is let's treat these butterflies as an axis line drawing also, all right? So we look at these butterflies, we want to find where they start, where they stop, and the direction that they're growing, like that, okay? So I want to find where this is going to be. I'm going to guess it's somewhere around here, and the angle and line length are something like this. This one is like heading toward the mouth. Don't open your mouth, lady. And it goes like that. Down here, this one is probably going to be somewhere down here, I'm going to guess. And it's heading toward that corner almost, like that. So these three simple little axis lines are going to become beautiful butterflies, okay? So what I'm going to do, now that I have the length of it, I can go ahead and start to do the specifics of the head and the body. And then I want to get the width of the wings. I'm going to say that the wings go from here, right, like that. So because they're symmetrical, meaning that they're equal on both sides, if I were to split it down the middle. Now don't do this. Don't get a butterfly cut in the middle. Oh yeah, they're symmetrical. They are symmetrical, okay? So if this one goes this way, that means this line is going to be the same length in the opposite direction. Okay? So that looks like it's going to work. This one here, a little bit shorter, and the wing reaches about here, right? And then we also have these objects here that are in between. I should deal with those right here. This shape that starts here, I can kind of divide that up also symmetrically. So what I'm going to do is along this line here, this goes this way. This point is maybe around here, right? Yeah, that works. That angle goes this way. They're radiating out from the center. And now what I can do here is I can go ahead and put that shape in. Goes like that. This shape in. Goes like that. Oh, that's a little off. Again, don't hold my pencil the way I'm holding it. And then I can put the butterfly and it should fit just fine. And then this butterfly here. So by using this whole axis line approach, oh, this one's a little bit off. That is helping me. It's helping me place all these complex shapes, these complex objects in here, and it's going to help me figure things out. There we go. Oh, this is too big. You know, I always marvel when I watch people on YouTube when they draw perfectly. Like, wow, that's great. They get it right in the first shot. I don't. You know, and I drew these things. I designed this and drew it. It's based on a Muka drawing, but you know, I drew this. So you know, if I can't get it right on the first try, then don't beat yourself up. But see how the butterfly is going to fit now? I can put in all the details later, all that fun stuff. But the butterfly should fit no problem in here now, okay? Butterfly, butterfly, butterfly. I got this here. And then I've got a really good strategy for the leaves here. There's another little curve that I can put up here. No big deal. I'll continue putting in these big leaves. And you're going to find if we do this approach, if we work from the inside out, finding where these leaves begin at their center spots, it's really going to help us figure out where things are going to go. I'll do one more for the road. Right here. Swings up. Swings up. Keeping in mind that negative space right here between those two openings right there, between that stuff. Goes like this, like this. And then I can go ahead and get that shape of the leaf on the outside. Oh, I forgot this piece. Don't tell anybody. Don't hit the hate button. But there we go. That gives me that. Swings in. Let's fix this. We're on our way. These grid tasks should be helpful in developing perception skills. They've served their purpose, but eventually we must move on to our second guide system, hash marks. In American football, the players, referees, and fans need to know the accurate location of the ball on the field. However, marking every yard with a line that crosses the entire width of the field would be a visual mess. The solution was the hash mark, a small marker that denotes the location of the ball but does not cross the entire field. For our purposes, hash marks will be small lines placed along the drawing's perimeter, and they'll replace the intrusive grid lines, forcing us to further develop our alignment skills by having us visualize an imagined grid. Now, when you work on a hash mark drawing, it is very important you do not connect the hash marks with lines. Otherwise, you've just turned it into another grid drawing. And at this point in our development, that would be a step backward. Okay, so we have our fourth drawing task of this lesson from Creativity Bridge, and you can download it from our website. And you can see that indeed we have just hash marks here. We don't have lines that are intruding over the image area. We've just got these little marks here that are going to help us out. And so I'll just number just a few of them. There's so few, but I'll just number these going down the side 1 through 6, 1 through 6, just so I make sure I don't mess up. But I shouldn't need to number these. And again, the proportion is the same, it's just the scale is different. So this drawing should fit in here, no problem. And as I mentioned before, we want to start with the largest object first, but there's only one object. So when I look at this, I'm tempted to draw the longest line on here. If I get that long line correct, that should establish everything else. So I'm going to start with this line that I see here that goes down and works its way up to this point here. And that's the line that I want to establish, okay? So I notice how close it gets to the corner right here, and I notice how close it's getting to the hash lines. like that. Now I want to be mindful, imagining a line that's here, but I'm not going to draw it, okay? We want to fight the urge to connect these hash marks, otherwise it's just another grid drawing. We're working on developing our perception skills. So I want to find this spot right here because ultimately that's going to be the target, the end point of my line. So here I'm going to guess that that line should be ending around here somewhere. Why did I make that guess? Because I'm looking between 1 and 2. It's a little bit above the halfway point. It's between these two right here. So I'm going to guess it's right there. If I'm off, I'm off. But let's see what happens. So this line makes its journey up this way. At this point, at this hash mark, it starts to begin moving back a little bit. And then at this point here, it moves back quite a bit. And then there's a slight direction change. And like that. So I think that's right. Let's see what happens. All right, now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and establish the other long line, which is this one. Here. It starts at the bottom at about here. And this point, I'm going to guess, is around here. I'm using the hash mark system to figure out where that's going to be, said tentatively. But let's see what happens, right? So I'm going to keep this line in mind as it goes up. I'm going to use what I've drawn already to help me figure out where things are going to go. See this long swoop right here? And that this direction change happens at about this point here. You see how I figured that out? And then this is, yeah, that looks about right. So it swoops like this. And then there's a direction change. And then this stops at about here. So this is a challenge, right? In some ways, this is going to be more challenging than the previous drawing. I mean, there's a lot of detail in the previous drawing, but this one has its own trick to it. But we'll figure it out. Oh, I got to be nicer to her. I got to be nice. Okay, there we go. Then it goes, then this line goes like this. And so I think we're on the right track here. Again, I'm fighting the temptation to connect these hash marks. This line drops down. There's a direction change. Comes back up. All right. Now I can go ahead and start putting in some of these details. So that belt that she's wearing, that's working out. Okay, good. And then I can put in these things later, but I think this is going to work out okay too. This goes like this. And then this line changes direction going this way, like this. Yep, I think that's right. And I'll do the rest later. But let's focus on this top part here. When I look at her arms, see how the elbow reaches this point right there? What I can do, though, is let's use another strategy, something that we've been using, the axis line approach here. Now, when I look at her arms, I can draw basically kind of like a stick figure for her arms. Since I already know where this is, that's going to really help me out where this axis line is going to go. So I'm going to go ahead and draw an axis line. Now this line I'm drawing doesn't represent the exterior of her arm, it's the middle of her arm. And see how the axis line basically is going to that hash mark here? So that's my target. And that ends as it's heading toward this hash mark. So that works. That's an axis line, not the actual arm. Here, this line starts here. It's basically a letter V that almost gets to line number 3. And vertically, it should be somewhere around here. So it's going to be like this. And it's going to come back up, right? So these lines represent the middle part of her arm. Now I can fatten them up. I should thicken them. And that's going to work out, I think. And then I'll do this one here. Her elbow actually goes beyond this hash mark, but I think I've taken that into account. Okay, good. Now, right now, what I'm going to do is, I've got these hands right here, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a simple oval shape right now. I'm going to use that as a placeholder, all right, as a placeholder. I'll deal with the hands later, but I want to make sure that everything's in the right spot first. So instead of drawing all the fingers, I'm going to draw an oval shape. Well, I'll use the red marker so you can see it better. Okay. And eventually, later on, I'll go back and revisit this and turn it into what it is. But see how I've drawn it at the right size? So that's going to help me out when I get to it. And see how this should be really close here. And that's going to help me too. Eventually, these oval shapes will become hands. But right now, they're working as placeholders. Okay? Now that I have this, let's go ahead and deal with her face and that big funky hat that she's wearing. When I look at her face, again, her face kind of has a shape like a football. And if I were to draw an axis line, it's going in this direction, not just her face, but her hat as well. And so what I want to do is I want to figure out where this is going to be. I'm drawing simplified shapes, and I want to figure out the larger objects and go down to the next largest, and so on. And so looking at this thing, I want to figure out where that chin's going to be relative to... So I'm guessing here. I'm guessing that this chin is going to be around here. You see how I figure that out? Now I want to figure out where the top of the hat's going to be. Like that. And this represents my axis line. I'll draw it lightly so you can see it. That's a little bit actually darker than it should be, but you can see how I'm going to use that as a foundation for her face and the hat. Okay? Now that I have this, I am going to figure out how long this should be. So I'm going to work this way. Right? I think that's this length right here represents her face. And so the hat should be getting close to her hands. I have an placeholder for the hands. That's going to let me know where the hat should stop, right? Here on this side and on this side. And then this gets close. So we're doing lots of work here. But what we're doing is really helping us out with our drawing skills. And for those of you that haven't drawn in years or ever, we're doing challenging work, but it's really going to help us. So I think that's going to be the hat. And then I can put all that stripe stuff in later, okay? Let's go ahead and put in the shape of her head. And does that work out here? I think it is going to work out. I need to make sure that her head is wide enough to get in all the detail. Now see how I'm holding the pencil? Do not hold your pencil like this, all right? I'm going to go ahead and put in that football-shaped head. It's all right. Her parents had football-shaped heads too. Just a little bit better. Okay, good. And then we can go ahead and put in the details of her face. She's got these two black shapes right here. And then she's got this opening for her mouth and her nose and her eyes. I'm going to go ahead and put in the mouth. If everything isn't in the right spot right from the very beginning, no worries. But let's see here. But that works out pretty good. I can refine it later. Right now that line, see I talked earlier about the line quality, about having a sharp pencil. My line was a little bit fuzzy, so it was making her look like she needed a shave. Well, I'll go ahead and clean that up. And you can see what a big difference having a confident sharp line makes. Now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and drop in the neck. And now I think everything's going to fit. Right? Maybe this could be a little bit lower, so all that stuff fits. But you can see the general shape of the drawing and how it's taking shape and how it's working. There are some slight adjustments that I need to make here. This should be a little less exaggerated. But everything else is looking pretty good. So that's going to work. So here we have the fifth of the 5 drawing tasks for this lesson here on creativitybridge.com. And you can see that we have hash marks here, but the hash marks barely exist. There's only 2 here and 2 here, and that's it. And so this drawing looks kind of cartoony, kind of simple, but in some ways this is going to be the most challenging one of the 5, and you'll see what I mean in a moment. Because here we've got all this empty space here with very little things to help us out. So that means we ourselves, we have to do most of the work now to make sure that everything is aligning vertically and horizontally in our drawing. So let's go ahead and give it a shot here. Again, thinking back on my previous drawings, you can anticipate what I'm probably going to say. Let's establish the largest object first. The largest object is going to set the tone for the drawing because it's going to take up the most space and everything else will orbit around it. So looking at this image here of this cool dude sitting on this sofa, on this lounge or whatever it is, I can't afford something that fancy. There's a computer here, there's a tablet here, a phone in his hand, and this cool little cat just wondering what's going on. I'm going to draw this first, and this piece of furniture that he's on, because that's going to give me a lot of information here. That's going to give me where this is going to be, how long he's going to be, because if I draw this too short, he's not going to fit. So I need to make sure that it's long enough in order for the drawing to work. So I'm going to go ahead and find out where this is going to be, this point right here. And I'm going to guess it's about here somewhere. I'm going to find where this corner is. I'm going to guess that's around here. And I'll connect that line like that. This point right here, that probably looks like it's about at the halfway point between the corner and this hash mark. So it starts about there like this. This rises up to about here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw this line as if this doesn't exist. I'm going to draw through it, okay? I can always erase that piece and draw this in later. But I'm not going to draw a line segment and then line segment. I'm going to draw it one big swoop because they're connected anyway. This, oh, actually, this should be higher. Let's fix that a little bit. This should be about here. And this is about here. So it just goes, oh. Aim is off. Uh-oh. Don't tell anybody. There we go. Little triangle here. Look at this and this. This is really close to that hash mark. That's an easy find. And this angle right here. I want to make sure that I get this angle correct, making sure that this line is moving away from this vertical. Okay? So I'm going to guess at this point is, this goes... Actually, let's get this line first. This line goes like this. See, that's the thing that's tricky about this. The angles on this drawing are really, really awkward. So we want to make sure that we draw everything correctly. Right. And then I'm going to draw this line going all the way to here. I think it stops at about here. And this is one of the reasons why it's hard. There's just nothing here. And I have to figure out where's that line going to stop, because I need to figure out if its accuracy. Otherwise, this whole thing's going to be wrong. I'm going to commit to this point right there. And then this, there's this like one bump, and then this little tiny line segment. That's about here. See, actually, no, that needs to be a little bit shorter. Well, I'll deal with that later. So I think I have enough here to get me started on this drawing. I'll draw this line going here. It mirrors that. And then it mirrors this like this. Okay, good. And that line segment there. All right, cool. So I've got that. Now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and draw the figure here. But I'm going to use axis lines. I'm going to draw him basically as a stick figure, make sure that he's big enough, and then that way I can just bulk him up to make sure that he's taking up enough space. So let me go ahead and use my red marker here. I'm going to go ahead and draw an oval shape to represent his head. Draw a line to represent the direction and length of his body. Leg, an oval for his shoes. Arm, oval, arm, oval. Okay? So if you guys can see that, that's what I want to put on here. So I'm going to go ahead and put in where his head will be. I'm going to use this as a guide. I'm going to guess the head should be taking up this much space. Okay? His body probably reaches about here. So his body is that length and that direction. His arm goes like this. Then that works out. And then it comes this way in this direction, stopping around here, I think. and that hand's going to be there. This oval shape is next to the other oval shape, so that's easy. This line is like a really tight V. Okay, and then this leg comes up, drops down, I'm going to guess about here. This leg is straighter, but longer. The shoe will be here. This shoe will be about, well, maybe this should be about here. Maybe this should be a little bit longer, okay? So this is really going to help me out as far as the length of it, because I know the length is going to be correct now. There may be some other things that I need to adjust, but the length should be no problem. Now that I have that, let's go ahead and bulk them up. You can start wherever you want. You can start with the head. You can start with the shoes. I'll start with the shoes. It's the closest to me. I'll draw the shape of it. And I'll put in the details later. I'll thicken up the leg. There's a line direction right here that I already took into account. This stops around here. I didn't put in the shape of this tablet that he has. It's not a rectangle. It's got all those weird angles. And I'm telling you, this drawing is deceptively tricky. I'm going to get this line direction going this way, going like that. The knee is up here, and the cuff of his pants. And then I'll start to erase the lines that I don't need. Otherwise, it's going to get kind of busy in my drawing. And I'll get confused even more than I normally am in my everyday life. Now I've got the shape where his shoe's going to go. That works out. Shoe, shoe, leg, leg. Looks good. And then we're going to work our way up this way. And his arm is right here. Maybe this line is too long, huh? Let's see what happened here. This point is about here. Oh, yeah. The leg was too short. See, everything impacts everything else. There we go. There we go. He was going to sue me. All right. Oh, yeah, and see how this drops below this line here? This needs to drop down below. Swing back up. And it's getting kind of busy in there. I'll clean that up. Put that in there. Okay, and then this works out here. This. See how close the shoulder gets? Drops down here. So maybe I've got an issue with this point here. Maybe this line is off on mine. Oh, no, just a little bit. Just a little bit. See? You know, one of the things you're going to notice as you develop your drawing skills is that you're going to notice things that are off by millimeters. And in our drawings, they make a difference. But the more you do this, the better you're going to get. Okay? So now let's go ahead and tackle this weird shape right here. I'm going to go ahead and put in this thing right here. And then this right here. And then this goes this way. I need to maybe lift. Yeah, I think I need to lift this leg a little bit, don't I? And then this corner goes beyond the middle hash mark. See that? Okay. Right. That should be maybe a little bit lower this way. There are a lot of weird angles in this one. A lot of weird ones. This is a deceptively simple drawing, but this one is going to be a challenge. I mean, you know, you can do this, but making sure that it's accurate will have its trick. There we go. There we go. Yeah, this line should have been a little bit higher. Now remember, when I did this line, nothing existed. But now that I have stuff, oh yeah, I need to fix this, I need to fix that. There we go. Now all is right with the world. Okay, good. Maybe this is a little bit long. Okay, so we've got most of the stuff here. We've got his face. I'll deal with his face in a bit. These lines in the background, that's going to be fairly easy to do. It's just a matter of connecting the dots, finding where this point is here. This goes this way. This goes, no, maybe this should be a little bit higher. Again, because there's nothing here, I'm just like shooting into empty space. Yeah, that's right. Okay, good. Now this chair is going to be a challenge because it's got so many weird angles to it. And you're going to want to draw it in a certain way, and you're going to have to remember to draw what you see, not what you think what you see, okay? So let's establish this thing. Looking at the chair, the thing that I noticed the most are these major angles. This one here, this one flares out a little bit more, this one flares out even more. So what I want to do is find out where these lines are going to be, where they start and where they stop. So this line segment is going to be, I'm going to guess around here, and it's a vertical, basically. This line segment is around here, and it's got a bit of a tilt. No, right around here. Yeah, it's not that tall. And that's another thing, the line lengths that we're dealing with here. Very tricky. And then this line here goes this way. None of these are at the same angle. They're all flaring at different angles. This is... See that? Okay. And this line is longer than this one at this point here. Or it's higher, I should say. Okay, good. Now that I have that, let's go ahead and see if these lines are going to work out. See this letter, it's kind of like a letter L right here. Do you see that L that I just put in? Let's go ahead and establish that. Getting that angle right. Getting the length right. Now remember, there's a change in size here. This image is small. This one is much larger. We have to compensate for that. You have to make sure that you don't have too much empty space here. You have to make the chair bigger. See how this part right here, the stick part, is like a V and then goes this way? So it looks like we have that. I need to make my line a little bit more precise. Now, when you're drawing a line, like I said in one of my earlier drawings, is you know, you have to put something down in order to fix it. You have to have an action in the world in order to address it. Otherwise, everything is just theory. Whether it's, you know, applying for the job that you want or asking the girl out that you want to ask, you know, it has, at some point, it has to manifest itself into the real world. Otherwise, you're just dealing with concepts. Concepts are important, but at a certain point, we have to put our ideas into action. Anyway, this line is vertical, right? This line has an angle also, but it's different from all these other angles. I need to find where that line begins. It needs angles toward that corner, right? And then it goes this way. Oh, I think things are going to work out. I think that chair is going to work out. Maybe this is a little bit too high. But for the most part, it looks like we're doing okay. I'm looking at this negative space right here, and that's pretty close. Oh, the stuff in the back. Again, a bunch of different angles happening. Don't get frustrated. Draw what you see, not what you think you see. Maybe this is a little bit too high. Or maybe this is, no, this is, yeah, this is too high. Easily corrected. There we go. All right, that works out. And now my little friend here, I'm going to draw this curve that goes up this way. Again, he's just floating right here. There's nothing anchoring this cat to anything. Oh, mine needs to go on a diet. And we're on our way. The hash marks provide a good transition after grid drawing, as they force us to do much more of the alignment work ourselves. Once these artificial guides are completely removed, the perimeter of the drawing will become one giant grid cell for us to use. Remember, all of the drawing tasks presented in this lesson are available for purchase. Please visit creativitybridge.com to download your lesson PDF and get drawing today. You'll also find other lessons designed to help you become the artist you've always wanted to be. My name is Ruben Cueto. Thank you for joining me here on Creativity Bridge, and always remember, creativity is your birthright. May it never leave you.